Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Mark Davis, and I have the honor of serving as the pastor here at St. Mark Presbyterian Church. And there are a couple of things I want to share with you just from where I sit and stand. The first is that we're using our video projection system with different outlets than we typically do. So we are experiencing a little glitch every now and then, but if you'll just be patient, hang on, pray to your God. It won't take long before it will be back, and things will be good. The other part that I want to share is that throughout the evening, you're going to hear the sound of running water. And if that affects you in a particular way, the bathrooms they're out those doors and down to the right. There's men and women, and then further down the hall is a unisex restroom that you can use. When St. Mark was built 17 years ago, we were declared by the International Audubon Society to be the greenest church in America, partly because of the way that we built the land and shaped the runoff, partly because of the preservation of the canyon that you can see outside of those windows. And we continue to have a very strong commitment to the environment. We have set the goal of having a neutral carbon footprint by 2030. And we're in our first year of trying to attain that goal. So we appreciate you being here and the commitment that you show by being here. You're all very, very welcome.
Hi, good evening. It's good to see you all. Just to clarify, I have turned off the Running Water soundtrack, so you won't have to worry about that. I am the Director of Adult Education here at St. Mark and New Hope Presbyterian Churches, and welcome to you all. We're excited to have you here tonight. I also want to thank Sue Ann for running the AV, and to Jeremy and to Kathy for helping to set up so that you can feel welcomed in this space tonight. And so at this time, I'm going to hand it off to Julia Lupton, who will introduce the rest of the program.
Hi, and Pastor Mark. Hi, you were going to do a short land acknowledgement that you do for the church. Yes. Could you share that with us, and then I'll... Thank you so much.
So while we wait for our video system to respond, when we gather here at St. Mark, we know that the land on which we are situated was once populated by the Ahakman and Tongva people. And we know that the Pacific Ocean has been a source of life and hope, inspiration and beauty for many, many generations. So when we gather here, we gather with a sense of humility and thankfulness to those who came before us, and with a sense of repentance for the kind of harshness that much of our human history has shown. So with that, I'll hand it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Mark and Sue Jean. Just a little shorter. Sorry. Great, thank you. We're so grateful to be hosted in this beautiful sanctuary for this gathering. I want to thank the staff at St. Mark for making this possible, and also everyone else who has helped. This special evening is hosted by the Interfaith Working Group of We Can, which stands for the Wildland Urban Interface Climate Action Network. And We Can is funded by a grant to UC Irvine, is a partnership of universities and community groups who are working together to develop science-driven and community-based responses to climate risks. And as part of that, this interfaith working group is sponsoring a series of these public conversations. We're organizing them around the 4 elements. This is the first one. The element is water, and they'll be taking place at different locations in Orange County with our different sponsoring interfaith members. So I want to thank my amazing committee members in the Interfaith Working Group. If you could please stand and be acknowledged. as well as the staff of the UC Humanities Research Institute and UCI School of Humanities. You all helped make this happen, so thank you. Knock, good. Thank you so much. And so we're just very grateful to be here tonight. Each of these gatherings is going to include a scientist speaking and also someone who's involved in community organizing around climate justice. And we will also begin each event with a communion, an interfaith elemental ritual that we've designed together to explore the element from different perspectives in a way that we hope will be memorable. And I am very, very grateful to Reverend Sadie Columber and Pastor Ryan Columber of Harbor Christian Church. Sadie and Ryan have done an incredible job thinking through our first of these events, which is our water communion. So I'm going to pass it on to them. Then we'll have our speakers, including our interfaith speakers, talking about water in Islam and water in Judaism. So thank you.
Good evening, and once again, welcome to this special event. Like Julia said, my name is Reverend Sadie Columber, and I'm the senior pastor of Harbor Christian Church in Newport Beach. It's an honor to be here tonight with all of you, with all of these interfaith religious leaders, with scientists, with community leaders, and with activists. I consider it a gift for all of us to gather, all of us in our uniqueness, our incredible diversity, and to consider the absolute wonder and sacredness of water. We all come from different parts of the county and beyond. Many of our journeys began far from here. We all come with different ways to pray, to honor the sacred. Some of us may not even pray at all. We all come with vastly different life experiences, backgrounds, worldviews, and belief systems. And we come with different languages, different hair colors and skin tones. We all come with different dreams and visions for our own lives and our communities. And yet, there are sacred things that remind us, no matter how different we all are, that we are eternally bound to one another and to this earth that we all call home. One of these sacred things that reminds us of our connections is water. Water that makes up at least 70% of our bodies. Water that has been recycled through rocks and minerals and root systems and soil ecologies and gardens and many bodies and rivers and seas and aquifers for billions and billions of years. Water that is life. Water that held each one of us in the womb of the one who birthed us. Water that cleanses and nourishes and refreshes. Water that moves and flows around our globe just as it moves and flows through our own bodies. Water connects us, even when we live in a world of disconnection. And water soothes us, even when we live in a world of pain and violence. Water refreshes us, even as we experience weariness that never ceases. And water cleanses us, even as we clutter ourselves with life's worries and griefs. Water also represents the joy and peace that is possible when we join with one another in community. And so in order to honor the sacredness of water, we're going to create a community ritual this evening that I pray you all will find very meaningful. This ritual can serve as a reminder for us of how water has been a healing element in our lives. This ritual will also be an opportunity to remember how our diverse faith traditions have used water in ritual, in cleansing, healing, birthing, and releasing. And for those who don't claim a faith tradition, this ritual can be a reminder of how water holds and nourishes you. Several of us, and some of you who've gathered with us today, have collected water from all across Orange County, and we've filled bottles with ocean water, harbor water, creek water, and more. We've also brought water, some of you, from our own homes, and each bottle has a different kind of water with different qualities, different salts, different minerals, representing the sacredness of absolutely all of it. And so in a moment, I'm going to invite those of you who would like to come forward to choose a bottle, which is up here on the communion table, or if you brought your own bottle, you can come forward with that as well. And once you have your bottle, you're going to be invited to read or to share wherever it is that you've collected that water from. So if you didn't bring water, did anyone bring water here this evening? Anyone want to raise their hands? All right. So you know where you collected your water from. But if you choose to participate in this ritual and you don't know where it came from, there's a label on the plastic bottles up here. And what we would really love for you to do is to take a bottle, and I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment, and then come over here and we're going to pour all of these diverse waters into one sacred fountain, which actually serves as the baptismal fount here at St. Mark's that they so generously offered us for this beautiful moment. So to begin the ritual today, what I'd like to do is, if you are a child or youth that is here, I would like to invite you first. I don't think we have too many children or youth, but I thought that would be a nice way for us to begin, because our young people are our future, and so let's have them begin this ritual.
Can I say something too?
Yeah.
We are going to be taking pictures of the water communion, so if you don't want to be photographed, be aware of that and let us know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you feel that you're being photographed and you don't like that, just let one of us know at the end. So I'm going to kind of model for you what this is going to look like so that nobody trips and runs into each other. But you're going to come up through the center aisle. You're going to walk over here right by the pulpit, and then you're going to come up, collect your water from the table, and let's try to stay behind the table because we don't want you tripping on cords. You'll come around this way. You'll speak the place of the water you collected into the microphone, and then you'll pour it. It's okay for us to have a line of people. In fact, that's best so that we move through the ritual in just a few minutes. And as you're doing this, I just want you to think about how beautiful it is that we're all here from across the county, many different faith perspectives represented, and yet we're going to create a common fountain of water together this evening to begin the first of 4 of these elemental climate discussions. So do we have any brave young people who would like to start our line this evening? At least my daughters can do this. All right. Come on up. And if those of you who are interested, would you please come on up as well? We can form a line and move ourselves just this way. Read what's on the label first.
This one's from the ocean? The whole thing?
And pour it all in. At the end of the evening, you'll be invited to return to the baptismal font and collect some of the mixed waters. So if you'd like to do that, then go ahead and keep your bottle with you.
This is from the harbor.
This is from Fairview.
(32nd Street and Newport Beach).
Harbor Christian Church.
From my home in Riverside.
These are borrowed raindrops from the Loma Ridge site up in the foothills.
This water specially came from Mecca, Holy Land.
This is rainwater from a fountain at UC Irvine.
This is water from the harbor.
Back Bay, not far away.
This is water from my house in Costa Mesa, and we have our own well in Costa Mesa, and it's very good water.
This is water from the Episcopal Church of the Messiah in Santa Ana.
This is water from a creek.
Water from Harbor Christian Church.
This is from the San Joaquin Marsh.
From my home in Lancaster.
This is Santa Ana rainwater.
From my home, Irvine.
This is water from the ocean.
And this is water from the ocean.
Water from the Back Bay.
Water from my Tustin home.
This is water from Fairview.
This water is from the marsh.
And this water's from the marsh.
This is water from the harbor.
This is water from our apartment at UCI.
So we've combined our waters together, reminding ourselves of the connection and unity that lies below all the things that we have allowed to divide us and to separate ourselves from one another. I want to thank you for bringing your water. Thank you for combining your water with mine and with each one here. My heart feels very full. Thank you.
So thank you, Sadie, and also Ryan for helping organize a lot of the water collection, as well as everyone who brought water to this event. And now I'm looking at the water. It's really beautiful. I'm very happy to introduce our first speaker, Steve Allison, who is professor of ecology at UC Irvine. He is the lead scientist in We Can, the grant that we're a part of. And he's also a visionary educator and community organizer. As part of the University of California's Carbon Neutrality Initiative, he was named the UC Irvine Climate Action Champion in 2016. And he has always placed community engagement at the center of his ecological research. He really understands ecology as social ecology. And that's how I began working with him, even though I was an English professor. He welcomed me into his work many years ago, and I'm very happy to be able to introduce him now to share some words about the work that he does. Steve?
Thank you so much, Julia, and thank you to you and your colleagues, the organizers of this really wonderful event. It is amazing to see such a large quantity of water there. I don't know how we're going to get it out of there, but we have a plan for later. Great. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about my research and thinking related to water. And I wanted to start with this image, which looks out from the place where the rainwater was borrowed from, a place called Loma Ridge, up in the foothills. This view looks out towards the Pacific Ocean, probably right over where we're situated right now. And you can see the landscape there, grasses and shrubs, mountainsides. And I wanted to think about the journey that this rainwater has taken as it's come through this really beautiful landscape. So the journey starts in the Pacific Ocean, maybe up by Alaska, far out over the waters, where that water evaporates, goes up into the sky, forms clouds, and then moves down in these storm systems down the Pacific coast, where it encounters our coastline, and the clouds actually get pushed up these hillsides. And as they get pushed up, that squeezes the water vapor and the rain out of the clouds, where it falls onto this really amazing landscape. It'll then trickle into the soil, maybe taken up by the roots of these shrubs that sustain the whole ecosystem in these places. Maybe some of it will percolate down deeper into the soil and form a bank of water for use in the coming months, in the drier parts of the year. Some of it will continue to flow down to the right. There's a line of oak trees in a little valley there, a little canyon. And that water will continue to flow maybe down that stream, and it actually flows back into Santiago Canyon and Santiago Creek, which is a tributary of the Santa Ana River. And so it'll flow down the Santa Ana River channel, maybe through some concrete and maybe through some homeless encampments, through the residents of those communities, out into the coastline, into the Pacific Ocean again, where it can then restart this cycle of water. And I think it's really beautiful because that's what is literally sustaining all of these plants, the animals, the microorganisms, and the people who live here. And this has been going on for a time immemorial. And this is recognized by the Ahashiman and the Tongva indigenous peoples who have been the original stewards of this landscape and who appreciate the value of this water and all that it provides in the system. Of course, there are changes, right? The world is changing, the climate is changing, and this is concerning. So one of the things that we can do, or I can do as an academic who's trained in biology and ecology, is to ask, what is going to happen? And not only that, but what can we do about it? And so that's the goal of a lot of my work and what really brings me here and what has connected me to many of the amazing colleagues that you've already met here tonight. So as a scientist, the way that we gain knowledge is often through doing experiments. So that image I just showed you shows the landscape surrounding what we call the Loma Ridge Global Change Experiment, which is actually one of the world's largest, most complex, longest running environmental change experiments out there. And it's right here in our backyard, right in the foothills. And since 2007, we've been doing this experiment where we change the amount of rainfall that's coming into ecosystems in grassland, which is on the lower left here, and shrubland on the upper right. And these are two of our iconic landscapes and really valuable habitat for endangered species and sources of cultural resources for indigenous tribes. Places of beauty that we go for recreation to enjoy nature. And we've been fortunate to work with the Irvine Ranch Conservancy, which is a management agency that oversees the land and is involved in stewarding that land. Land is currently owned by Orange County Parks. It's not open to the public. It's open by invitation or through special programs. because it's such valuable habitat, and there's a need to figure out ways to preserve and protect it and allow it to serve this really important function of cycling water, but also other elements and providing habitat for other species. So in this really complex landscape, we have the privilege of doing this kind of experiment where we reduce the amount of rainfall that's reaching some of these experimental plots by 50%. And we take some of that rain, and that was what I poured into the font earlier. Some of that rain is captured, and then we pump it back on to other experimental plots that have added rainfall. So we can see what happens when we add more or when we take away the water. And we can look at what that means for the plants and the microorganisms, for the bank of water in the soil, maybe even for the animals like the gophers that dig around in these experimental plots. And so with that knowledge, we're hoping to inform the stewardship and the planning and the benefits of this land for not just the Irvine Ranch Conservancy, but for all of us, for all the communities that are dependent on and appreciating this landscape. Now, it definitely takes a village to do this kind of experiment, and I'm really grateful to work with a crew of students and staff and other faculty, colleagues, community members who will come out and help us to maintain and learn from this exciting experiment. So these are a couple of my colleagues after we have implemented the rainfall experiment. So we wait for a storm to come, and when it's a few days out, we send a crew of 6 to 8 people out there, and they pull this large plastic sheet over the frame, and there are 8 of these structures in grassland and 8 others, which are 4 times the size, in the shrubland. And that prevents the storm water from reaching the soil surface, so that plot stays drier, and then we can compare that plot to surrounding control plots that receive the regular ambient rainfall. So it takes a lot of people to do this, and we have to do this more often when it's a wet winter like it was this past year and the year before that. And California is known for its variability in rainfall, so it's a little bit hard to predict what we're going to need to do. But it's been nice to have the support of colleagues who are interested in what's going to happen to these systems. More recently, in the past couple years, we've started to think about ways that we can better connect this kind of research and the opportunities it affords to the surrounding communities, to the residents, indigenous tribes whose ancestral homelands the experiment's located upon. And so we had a series of workshops where we brought together community groups, including Orange County Environmental Justice was participating in this. And we brainstormed and we workshopped about what are the needs, what do people, community members want to know about our water cycle, about our vegetation, about these landscapes, what's important to them, and how can we provide that? How can we change the way that we do research around climate change and land stewardship to better address those needs? So out of that set of thinking came this idea for a network, the Wild and Urban Interface Climate Action Network, where we are trying to do things differently. We are trying to shift the focus towards the needs of our community members, towards the questions that really matter for how people access and engage with and enjoy, preserve and protect this land for future generations. So that's the goal, and that consortium includes universities, but also indigenous tribes and community organizations, many different disciplines from the humanities to the social sciences, the arts, education, the natural sciences, faith-based organizations. And so we really are trying to be much more inclusive than is typically done with this kind of project. Because I really don't think that scientists can fix a problem like climate change on their own. And we would be mistaken and naive to think that that would even be possible. So I've already learned so much from my colleagues and friends and collaborators who are coming from these different perspectives that are kind of represented by the different types of water that are present in the font right here. And I have to say, we've already learned so much about these ecosystems and about the role of water. Water is everything, right? Many of us live here or have lived here, and it's a dry place, right? A lot of our greenery is here either because it's next to a water source or because we irrigate it. And we're seeing that kind of result in our experiment. If we take away water, that has an impact on the plants that grow there. The plants don't grow as tall. They don't grow as much. They may die off in a drought period. If we take away water, we see the bank of water in the soil down to 6 feet under, drying up. We can measure that. We see changes in the biodiversity. We see changes in the types of bacteria and fungi that live on the surface of the soil and cycle carbon and nutrients. We see changes in the types of plants that are occurring in the drought plots versus the adjacent control plots. We see that these systems respond differently to fire. So these are pictures of the result of the 2020 Silverado fire. What had happened is that the lack of water in the drought plots reduced the growth of the shrubs, these iconic shrubs that are really important habitat. As those shrubs kind of suffered and withered, that allowed some of the exotic invasive grasses and other plants to take hold, and also reduced the amount of fuel for the wildfire. So you'd think, oh, well, that should be good, right? There's less fuel, the fire won't burn as strong. And that's exactly what happened. But when the fire doesn't burn as strong, it doesn't kill the weeds. And so in the drought plots, the fire went through, but it didn't burn very much, and the weeds were able to come right back after the fire and continue to displace those shrubs which had been suffering from the drought. So what we're seeing is that when you add together drought with fire, and maybe with other extremes in climate, that's going to have a negative impact on these systems that we really care about. And that's important for trying to steward them going forward, to say, well, if we know that there's going to be more frequent drought, and we know there's more frequent fire, then we really have to be careful about introducing exotic species. We really have to be diligent about removing or dealing with the presence of those exotic grasses. Because they're also very flammable and they can spread fire and catch fire easily, which is bad for our residents and communities that live downstream and downwind from these systems. So we're learning a lot, but there's still so much more to learn. We do know that the water is indeed sacred to these systems, to the people, to the landscapes, to the plants, the animals, the microbes and bugs, everything. And so I think it really warrants the respect and the blessings that we have given it through our exercise tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve, so much. We're going to switch now to Kayla Villegas because Steve mentioned the importance of partnerships with community groups around issues of environmental justice. Climate change affects different communities differently, and that is also a focus of the studies that we're doing and the kinds of conversations we're trying to have. And Kayla's been a really big part of that, and so we're really glad that she was able to come tonight. Kayla is the Water Justice Director of an organization called OC Environmental Justice, which is one of the partners on our grant. Kayla graduated from UC Santa Barbara with a BA in Environmental Studies and an emphasis in political science, so kind of embodying this interdisciplinary, holistic approach to these questions. And she joined OCEJ in 2020, and she's going to share the work of her organization in the area specifically of water justice. How does water differently impact and flow through different communities? So thank you, Kayla.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Julia, for that wonderful introduction. Sorry, just going to hit present right here. Yes, my name is Kayla Villegas. I am the Water Justice Director at OCEJ. And today I'll be presenting our Communities Organizing for Better Water campaign. So at OCEJ, before I dive into SUYO-BW, we do a few other campaigns. Our more popular one would be our Plono Santa Ana, which focuses on soil lead contamination in the city of Santa Ana. Unfortunately, residents there have been exposed, they're continuously being exposed to high levels of lead that surpass state and federal regulations. We also have a summer annual academy catered toward the youth to learn about the environment, learn about what environmental problems we have in Orange County, and then most importantly, how to be involved. And we also partner up with Protect Pavagna, a sacred site which is now known as Cal State University of Long Beach. And we partner up with the Ahashiman and Tongva nations to uplift their environmental fights and see how we can uplift and continue to fight side by side with them. And last but not least, we also do electoral organizing, helping folks to exercise their right to vote. All right. So throughout all of our campaigns, we follow this model. And our first step is to establish a community relationship. Get to know our neighbors, introduce them to our staff, get to know what are their interests, what are their concerns. And second, we try to identify an environmental justice issue together. What is concerning them? What is happening in their day-to-day lives? And we partner up with academic institutions to do research and continue mobilizing and then develop an action plan. All of this and bringing all of these people together and academic institutions together into mobilizing a plan of how we can properly address an environmental issue together. So how does that look like in reality, right? In 2015, we went door-to-door knocking, asking residents what is their biggest environmental concern as an Orange County resident. And our biggest response was water. Unfortunately, a lot of Orange County residents are concerned about stormwater pollution or their water quality in general. So as a result, we partnered up with UCI and OC Coastkeeper to bring you Photo Voice. Photo Voice is a research method where a participant can go out into their field, which could be their home, it could be their campus, anywhere that they coexist, take a photo of something that is a water concern to them, and then bring it back to us, bring it back to other participants and OCEJ staff, and we talk about what is the issue, how can we address it, and most importantly, how does the participant want to see that change in their own community and uplifting that. We don't expect all of our participants to have solutions right away, but we are there to guide them to see, okay, if a participant comes up to us and say like, hey, there's X, Y, and Z happening, I want ABC to be as a result and a solution, and uplift those grassroots solutions. So from previous conversations, we were able to pile up all those grassroots solutions and put them into our policy brief. But right before I jump into that policy brief, I wanted to showcase some of the pictures that our participants have submitted to us before. In the first picture, you see a stormwater drainage that is clogged up with debris and a bit of just like plastic pollution here and there. And so that, as a result, just highlights the need for better city maintenance. A lot of the water standards that are out there are really good. It just lacks monitoring and enforcement. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel and come up with new laws and et cetera with this policy brief, but just highlighting what the community needs and may be lacking and what needs to be done. In the second photo, you see of a car, like a junkyard. I actually personally took this photo back in like 2020, and it's a junkyard located in a residential community. This happened during a rainy event. So all of that pollution that you see there that is gathered up and pulling together was flowing into the residential community. This is where children play, this is where people coexist with one another, and they have to be exposed to all of the pollutants associated with cars, batteries, et cetera. It's a junkyard. And so after trying to talk with the owners of this junkyard, unfortunately, they wouldn't come to terms or an agreement to any sort, so we had to take legal action and take it up to a court to settle this case. I visited this location maybe 2 months ago, and luckily it's all cleaned up. There's no more like this chaos going on in this photo. Everything is set, and they are keeping all of that pollution within their premises, which wasn't the case when I first took this picture. In the last photos, we see a flash flood event happening within a residential area. And I know it's a little hard to see, but in one of them you can see the yellow of a school bus. So this was during the normal weekday, and we are expecting our children to go and walk from here to that school bus and get to their classrooms, which to me, like, it's a good, your shoes will get wet. You're gonna arrive at your class with water prints. So in this policy brief, it touches upon like city maintenance issues, right? But as well as other things such as indigenous stewardship. A lot of our participants wanted to see the river, the Santa Ana River, be granted personhood. That way it can have more rights and more protections and more consequences to those polluters emitting their waste into the river. We also want to see transparency in industrial polluters. How much are they permitted into emitting their waste into our waterways, and how much is being enforced if they violate those permits? Last but not least, we also want to take a preventative approach to restore and maintain the health of our waterways. Now, so far with our COBW campaign, we've been able to monitor stormwater pollution and capture water concerns in that manner. Luckily, we were able to get more funding this year to expand that research into water quality and things that we may not be able to see with our own eyes directly. So that includes PFAS. PFAS are a contaminant, a chemical that is found, unfortunately, in most of our items in our day-to-day lives. It can be in our furniture, which makes them fireproof. It can make in our nail polish, in our cookware, unfortunately, a lot of things. So in case you haven't heard of PFAS, they are the per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Has anyone heard of PFAS before? Okay, great. So as you may know, they are known as miracle chemicals or forever chemicals. And this is because the carbon and fluoride bond is nearly indestructible. To give you a perspective, the average magma inside of a volcano temperature is between 1,200 and 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. PFAS begin to break down at 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit. So, we can think of like building a furnace to try to gather up these PFAS and burn them, but a lot of them will argue, it's not economically sound. It's going to take a lot of energy to maintain that type of furnace. And then most importantly, how is that furnace being powered? Is it sustainable? Is it renewable? So it just comes with a lot more issues, unfortunately. But that is why they're known as forever chemicals. On top of that, they are associated with health risks. So altered immune systems, which makes us less susceptible to vaccines, low birth weight, high cholesterol, liver, testicular, and prostate cancer. It has also been linked to high PFAS exposures. And so, unfortunately, because we are exposed to PFAS everywhere, I think it is a huge concern, given that until of April of this year, there was no maximum contaminant level at the federal level. So in April, the Biden and Harris administration finally passed PFAS legislation. So they made a max contaminant level of 4.0 parts per trillion. So any type of entity, industrial, that is surpassing that limit will face some consequences, whether that be monetary, et cetera. It is up to wherever location it is to be set to determine. But they also made a max contaminant level goal. It's not enforceable, but it is a goal to have zero presence of PFAS in our drinking water. Among that, the EPA has also mentioned that all public water systems have 3 years to complete initial monitoring. How much PFAS is in our drinking water, and most importantly, they must inform the public of what level of PFAS are found in your drinking water. So keep an eye out for that in the next 3 years. Hopefully it is close to zero. And after the 3-year mark, they have 5 years to implement solutions to reduce PFAS in drinking water. So thanks to this legislation at the federal level, we will be looking forward for local municipalities to be receiving assistance to implement those solutions and get PFAS out of our drinking water and out of our bodies. And to wrap up how we can be involved together, you can follow up with me. You can be joining within our paid water focus group. We do offer a small stipend for your time in order to document that water pollution that you are facing within Orange County. And then we are also collaborating in a Santa Ana Clean Water Initiative. So we're brainstorming a community event centering PFAS and other water contaminants in Santa Ana. We are going to be offering free water testing sign up for residents, as well as other educational materials. There's also going to be music and food and games, but besides the point. And then overall, again, you can always follow up with me with any questions or concerns. Again, my name is Kayla. Thank you all so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kayla, and thank you, Steve, for those paired teachings. That was really very important. We're going to have Sadie come up again and lead us back to the water communion as a kind of segue to our interfaith portion on water in Islam and Judaism.
So I'm going to invite you guys into a bit of a mindful embodied practice. But before we begin that, just remind what we've done today. At the beginning of our time, we poured our water that was collected from diverse places all across Orange County. You've had an opportunity to listen to Steve Allison, a scientist, and his project, and to Kayla Villegas, who works with the justice side of water. So I think we're hitting a lot of perspectives here, and that is very powerful to have all of this happening in one event. What I'd like you to do now, in order to really kind of embody what we've done this evening together so far and to move us through, is if you're comfortable, I want you to close your eyes. If you're not comfortable closing your eyes, then just soften your eyes and maybe find something to kind of gaze at. And as you've softened and closed your eyes, I'm wondering if you're beginning to see how unique this gathering is. All the different people that are sharing space together this evening. And I'm wondering if we can imagine ourselves as beautiful vessels of water, seated next to each other, pulling the shared air through our own vessel of water, your diversity next to mine, each one unique. And I wonder what it would take for each of us to pour ourselves into the vessel of community. And I wonder how mighty a river we could create if we did. Take a moment to reflect on the fact that your water is sacred. Each one of you, just as it is, just as you are. And become aware of the water in you. Offer that water a blessing and kindness. And now become aware of the water in the person to your right. And offer their water a blessing and kindness. And in the same way, become aware of the water in the person to your left. And offer that water a blessing and kindness. And before we open our eyes, I want you to imagine the communal vessel that we poured our waters into. These were the waters that were poured out and joined with one another. These are the waters that forgot their separation and remembered their unity. Offer a blessing and kindness to these waters and give thanks. Take a couple deep breaths in for yourself and just feel yourself fully here and give thanks. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Maybe focus on the baptismal font and the beauty of those joined waters.
Thank you, Pastor Sadie. That really leads us into our final segment of our program tonight, which is some reflections on water in Islam and in Judaism. And so I first want to welcome to the dais Dee Ustan of the Pacifica Institute, who is going to share the significance of water in Islam. Dee has a BS in environmental engineering and a master's degree from UCSB's Bren School of Environmental Science and Management. She worked in environmental consulting for almost 15 years, including site investigations, groundwater, and soil cleanup. And she currently works at SCE. We're really glad to have you and Pacifica Institute, our partner, here tonight. Here's wood. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was so powerful. Thank you so much. It's so good to be here tonight. I'm honored to be here. And you probably realize I don't have any titles. I'm not a, imam or a sheikha. I'm just a simple, lay Muslim woman who's trying to practice her faith. Oh, thank you. I think maybe you can hear me with that too, but I'll hold this. Alrighty, so I'm going to talk about water in Islam. And before, since like Julie mentioned, in my career, I worked on many environmental projects, and one of them is a big water cleanup project. Anyone remember Erin Brockovich? You watched the movie? So I worked on that site, water cleanup project for many years as a project engineer, and it's still ongoing. You would be surprised. The movie was out in the 90s, so it's best to not dump any chemicals in groundwater or anywhere in your backyard, because these things like water cleanups takes years and years. It's probably going to take another good 20, 30 years before that water can be safely used by the community there, or if actually not at all. Water in Islam. We Muslims, and I think many believers do, see the whole world as a display of God Almighty's perfect divine qualities. Compassionate, merciful, all-powerful, and many more. So when we look at the nature, we see signposts. When we look at a river, a tree, an animal, the soil, we all think those are displaying God's divine qualities. So those things should always make us remember God Almighty. And maybe because of that, nature, everything around us requires to be, we need to admire, respect, love, and protect, right? And we believe God has appointed us as guardians of our nature. So we have the responsibility to do that. We Muslims also believe that we have strong ethical codes from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, because he talked about how to treat trees, animals, and how to deal with water. In the Quran, Holy Book of Islam, water is mentioned numerous times. Last night I counted over 100. So this emphasizes its role as a vital component of creation and life. One of the surahs I really liked is from Surah Al-Anbiya. We made from water every living thing. Then will they not believe? So this verse, just by itself, highlights the divine power behind water as the source of all life on earth. Another one, it is He who sends down water upon you from the sky with which to purify you. Quran also talks about water not in this life, but also hereafter as well, that believers will be rewarded with gardens, with flowing streams, rivers of water that are ever pure. Also, water is a major theme in Islam, and I think we have it, most of them as common for many, especially people who belong to Abrahamic faiths. Many of the prophets, right? Moses, Jesus, Noah, Abraham, they all have stories related to water. And it is not surprising, you know, if we think most of the prophets came into the Arabian Peninsula or that area where water is really scarce. It's like these are like dry areas, there is desert and stuff like that. Have anyone watched the Dune sequel lately? Yeah? I was just thinking about that last night too. Oh my gosh. I think it's in a way that movie, if you haven't watched it, shows us like maybe in the many years in a galaxy far, far away, water will be really scarce and we need to really protect it. Thankfully, our water isn't that rare because they were drinking coffee made from human spit. So that's a good thing. We don't have to do it yet. So going back to the prophets in the Quran, there is one of the sections about Moses says, "And remember when Moses prayed for water for his people, we said, 'Strike the rock with your staff.' Then 12 springs gushed out, and each tribe knew its drinking place." Another verse. God states in the Quran that Virgin Mary gave birth next to a date tree and a water ark. Here it goes. "Do not grieve. Lord has provided a stream at your feet. And we made the son of Mary and his mother a sign and gave them refuge on high ground, a suitable place for rest with flowing water." And going back to giving birth next to a date tree, many Muslim women eat dates before giving birth. And I have done it too. I don't know if it has helped me, but another important figure related to water in Islam is Hagar, Hajar in the Quran. And I think it's in the story is in the Old Testament. As probably many of you know, Abraham's first wife, Sarah, couldn't conceive. And then Hagar was a slave from Egypt. Sarah tells Abraham, "Hey, why don't you, take her as a wife? Maybe you'll conceive." And then Ishmael is born. I guess there is some tension between the two women, as expected. And with God's order, Abraham takes Hagar and Ishmael to a place that is in the middle of nowhere. Okay, and then with God's order again, he leaves them there. You probably know this story. Okay, if my husband did this to me, that would be the end of his story. But the story in our holy books didn't end there, because Hagar, being a woman of faith, right? He asked Abraham, "Hey, Abraham, are you leaving us here because it's God's word or just you decided to do it?" And Abraham says it's God's will. So she says, "I'm okay then, because God will protect us." I mean, that's a strong faith there. And yeah, this is crazy. If you think you're a woman with a toddler in the middle of nowhere, you're just left with just a little bit of food and water, and what happens? The water runs out, the food runs out, right? So Hagar, trying to feed the little one, she starts running between the two hills of Sephah and Merveh. And then God sends angel Gabriel, and then I don't know what exactly happens, but water starts gushing out of the ground, and they were able to basically get water. And Hagar actually, in our belief, she tries to keep the water in. She just builds a little mound around the water so they don't lose it. She's just afraid it's not gonna last too long. But that water actually is right now the water known as Zemzem. It's next to Mecca. And Osman actually, we brought it with this little jug. Yeah, that it is. So this water, we believe, is the water from the well that actually Hagar started thousands of years ago. And Mecca pretty much started right after this, this well. So it's amazing that it's a woman and her story that started one of the most important rituals for Muslims. It's the Hajj, where we go to Mecca, we walk around the Kaaba, and it has other rituals too. But Hagar, for us, for believers, is an example of a person who has complete belief in God, and that, after events that happen to us, there is always something good happening. We also have many rituals related to water in our faith tradition. One of them is called the ablution, the wudu. We have 5 times prescribed prayers. So before each prayer, we're supposed to wash our hands, wash our face, wash our arms up to our elbows. Then we just wipe our head a little bit with water, and then our feet. And that's just brings us, cleanliness. It just, it just makes us ready for our prayer meeting with God. And there are also other rituals, like a dead body cannot be buried. It has to be washed all over. The body has to be washed before burial. On conservation of water, when there is a very important example during Prophet Muhammad's time, that one of his companions was doing this ablution I was telling you about, and he was using a lot of water. And then Prophet gently told him, hey, you're using too much water. And he's like, but I'm doing something good, I'm taking a shower. I can take it for an hour, that kind of thought behind it. I'm using it for a good purpose. And he says, no, you just need to use only what you need to use. And then he says, even if there is abundant water, even if you're next to a clean running river, just take only what you need. So this shows Muslims that we need to be responsible from our water usage. And if we look at the Islamic history, the Abbasi, Umayyad, all is Andalus, Islamic, I guess, what do you call them, empires. They built irrigation systems. They included water conservation in their architecture. They built many public water infrastructures, and then they had regulations on water usage. So in conclusion, the importance of water in Islam extends far beyond its physical properties. For us, it symbolizes purity, sustenance, spiritual renewal, embodying the mercy and blessings of God. Thank you.
She's a natural teacher. That was great. We're going to now have Rabbi Marcia Tilchin. We're going to reconnect the computer, I think. And I'm very happy to introduce Marcia. She is my dear friend and my spiritual guide. She is the founder and spiritual leader of the Jewish Collaborative of Orange County. She is both a cantor and a rabbi, and she's very active in the community around environmental issues as well as other issues such as homelessness, the refugee crisis, recovery movements, and more. So it is with great pleasure, Marcia.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Do they see it? Okay.
Yes. Well, just that one.
This one. Okay, I hope you guys can see it. Great. Okay. So, what an honor it is for me to be here and be able to present alongside the incredibly thoughtful and knowledgeable and heartfelt speakers we've had so far today. And I hope I can do this topic justice in 10 minutes. Suffice it to say, I titled this The Centrality of Water in Jewish Theology, in Jewish Prayer, and in Jewish Practice. And like Dee shared, I could give countless examples of the importance of water in its essence, in its practical usage and nature. I'm going to do the best that I can. So the first thing that I just want to say is that the nation of Israel exists because we are born through water. And we remember that every day because every morning we recite some passages from the book of Exodus that recount the children of Israel fleeing Pharaoh, getting to the Sea of Reeds, and then, at some point the waters part and we go through on dry land and we get to the other side. And this is what we say, and in our prayers in Hebrew, and you saw the affliction of our fathers in Egypt and the cry you heard at the Sea of Reeds. And you, God, imposed signs and wonders against Pharaoh and all his servants and all the people of his land, for you knew that they acted malevolently against them, the people Israel, and thus you made a name for yourself, and the sea you split before them, and they went through the midst of the sea on dry land. Their pursuers you hurled into the depths like a stone of the mighty waters. Well, we actually know that Yam Suf wasn't very deep, but this is obviously an imagery that we have, and it's sort of like being born. When our water breaks, this is how, when the water breaks, the baby comes, and we become a person. Then we're in the womb, we're a fetus, and then we're a person. And so for Israel too, they had to go through water to become a nation. I'm going to go through this really fast. You're probably going to be like, that's wacky. Okay, the next thing is that we understand that God's strength is always depicted through all elements of nature. I could give this lecture on air and fire, but for right now, in water imagery. And I chose Psalm 93, which we recite every Sabbath on Friday night and Saturday morning. There are different psalms associated with different days of the week, and the psalm for the Sabbath, the culmination of creation, is Psalm 92, and we conclude our Friday night and Saturday prayers with Psalm 93. And I'll just focus on that which is bolded. Nasa'una harot Adonai, Nasa'una harot kolam yisa'una harot doch yam. The ocean sounds, O Lord. The ocean sounds its thunder. The ocean sounds its pounding. Mikolot maim rabim adirim mishbarei yam adir babarom Adonai. But above the thunder and the mighty waters, more majestic than the breakers of the sea, is the Lord majestic on high. So the Lord The water is God is compared to water, but we understand God as the creator of water, even more powerful and even greater than the huge waves and the thunder that comes. And there's so many imagery in Psalms and other scriptural passages. Okay. We also understand that God communicates with us through water. We believe that God rewards and punishes people for their good deeds or not by granting or withholding water. So every day, twice a day, we say in our prayers, "And it will be, if you vigilantly obey my commandments." This is from Deuteronomy, the 5th book of the Torah, chapter 11. "If you obey the commandments I command you to this day, to love Adonai your God and serve God with all your heart and your whole soul, then I will give you rain for your land in its proper time, the early autumn rain and the late spring rain. And you will harvest your grain and your wine and your oil, and I'll put grass in your fields for your cattle, and you will eat and you'll be satisfied. But beware, lest your hearts be swayed and you turn astray, and you worship alien gods and bow to them. Then Adonai's fury will blaze among you. He'll close off the heavens, and there will be no rain, and the earth will not yield its produce, and you will perish swiftly from the good land which Adonai gives you." Now, of course, this is very complicated, and this is one of the foundation texts for really understanding the issue of theodicy. We know throughout history that many very good people haven't been able to farm because there's been no rain. They're not being punished, but in its infant stages in the book of Deuteronomy, and this is 4,000 years ago, what we understand is that the ultimate blessing for the person working the land was the gift of rain. And their simplistic idea was that if there was no rain, something wasn't going right. And they took responsibility for that. So that's like just a theological use of water. Oh, okay. And then we do this annual plea for water based upon the merit of our ancestors. One day in the fall, we do a prayer called Geshem, which means rain. And it's recited on the 8th day of the holiday of Sukkot, our fall festival, the beginning of the rainy season. And we say in Hebrew, and it's a big thing. It used to be until 200 years ago when Jewish people became more assimilated. This was the most important day, as important as Yom Kippur, our Day of Atonement. People would go to synagogue in droves and pray for water. We'd say, "You are mighty forever, our master. You are the resurrector of the dead through water." God will impose upon Afbri, which is one of the names of the the angels in our midrashim, in our stories, to divert rain from streams of water, to soften the surface of the earth with sparkling gem-like drops. And this was a big music piece. There was music going on you couldn't imagine. Water symbolizes your might, as you labeled it in Scripture. It reassures with its drops those in whom was blown the breath of life. That's all of us. And all of us was blown the breath of life. And then we have 6 verses in this poem. It was a very long poem. We still have about these 6 verses. And each verse represents different, here our patriarchs and our liberators. So one verse is for Abraham, one is for Isaac, one is for Jacob, one is for Moses, and one is for Aaron. And the last one is for the 12 tribes of Israel. And every line goes back into the verses of scripture and rabbinic literature, and it makes these references all about water. So, Zachor avnim shach acharecha kamaim. Remember the patriarch who was drawn to you like water. And that was Abraham. When God said, Lech lecha, leave your homeland and go where I tell you, Abraham goes, okay. So he was drawn to you like water. You blessed him like a tree planted beside streams of water. Remember, God said, I will number your offspring like the stars in the sky and the sands of the sea. You protected him. You rescued him from fire and water. There's many tales in our Agadah, in our literature about Abraham getting in these very scary situations, and God saved him. You sought him out when he sowed beside still waters. And for his sake, for Abraham's sake, do not hold water. We're not going to do all of them, but I want to do the last one for you. This is Geshem, verse 6. Remember the 12 tribes. These are the 12 sons of Jacob, who you brought through the divided waters. That's what I just said. Remember, we went through the divided waters as a people after escaping Pharaoh, for whom you sweetened the bitterness of water. When they got to the other side, all of a sudden, and by the way, it's like, what have you done for me lately? The children of Israel were like, we're thirsty. And there was like no water to drink. So anyway, the water was bitter, so God told Moses to hit the rock, and he hit the rock, and out came sweet water. So you sweeten the bitterness of water. Their descendants, that means all the Israelites and Jewish people for thousands of years, their blood was spilled for your sake like water. To us, for your soul is engulfed. Turn to us, for our soul is engulfed with woes like water. In the merit of the righteousness, grant us abundant water. And then we add this line, which then goes into all of our daily prayers 3 times a day, starting on this day. We don't say it when it's not in the summer. We only say this in the fall. For you, Lord, our God, are the causer of the wind to blow and the rain to fall. And then everybody goes, Livracha v'lo liklala, for blessing and not for curse, which means too much water can be a problem, not enough water can be a problem. The right amount of water is what we need, for blessing and not for curse. L'chaim v'lo lamavet, for life and not for death. People can die by water, and yet we need it for life. And then the other one, which is just not here, for plenty, l'sova v'lo l'razon, for plenty and not for scarcity. Water so that we can have plenty of food, not so that we are thirsty and there's no crops. And people say amen. And then what we do in our prayers every day, we say, you are mighty, forever our master. You are the resurrector of the dead, the powerful one to deliver us. In the summer we say Morid Hatal. He causes the dew to descend every day 3 times in our prayer. And in winter, Mashiv Haruach, or Morid Hagashem, the causer of the wind to blow and the rain to fall. So that's water in our prayer and water in our theology. These are pictures of Jewish ritual baths. These are so important in everything that we do. They are used by women and by men for purification. Usually, there's at least 7 steps going into a ritual bath, which has to have flowing water in it. You can't use a swimming pool for a ritual bath because there's no exchange of water. So every mikvah has like another water source, and when you use it, you have to pull a plug so that the waters get mixed, almost like what we did here today. It's so interesting. These are used for when people decide to become Jewish and they immerse fully in water as if they're coming through the sea of reeds, so to speak. They're used by women for ritual purity reasons. They're used for people who have gone through a trauma, sort of again to feel a sense of renewal. There's so many beautiful ways to use mikvah. So this is just one example. And last but not least, we use water every day when we eat in our hand-washing rituals. So I'll just say that when the temple was destroyed in the year 70 and we stopped being a cultic religion, the rabbis said, no more are we going to sacrifice animals, but every time we eat a meal, it'll be as if it's an altar of thanks and gratitude to God. Well, when the priests used to, before they slaughtered the animals, they would have to do a major ritual washing. This is thousands of years ago. And so now, every time we sit down to a meal, we do a ritual washing, and I brought my little vessel to show you. So you can see, you can see a guy putting it on his hands. It says, Se'u yedechem kodesh uvarchu et Adonai, raise your hands in holiness and bless God. And so I'm going to do that for you right now, and then I'm going to slice up a delicious bread, and we'll all be able to have it at the reception. So you pour it. This is a custom. It's a ritual. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. We say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. Again, it's not on washing the hands, but it's on lifting the hands, because again, the priest would sort of like lift up the animal before they sacrifice. So we lift our hands, and then we're not supposed to talk between washing, but I'm talking to tell you that I'm not supposed to talk. And then we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam ha'motzi lechem min ha'aretz. And then we sit down to our meal. And so these are just a fraction of the ways that water is used and imagined and in our relationship with God, with our religion, and also with our own goodness and our own failings. So thank you so much for letting me share.
And there will be challah and other treats very soon. Reverend Pastor Sadie and Pastor Ryan are going to take us out.
Not like the mafia.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Cullenber. I'm an associate pastor over at Harbor Christian Church, and I am going to honor the waters that we have combined and blessed this evening. I'm going to share a blessing written by Starhawk in her book, The Earth Path. It's called Blessing for Water. Praise and gratitude to the sacred waters of the world, to the oceans, the mother of life, the womb of the planet life that freshens our air with oxygen, the brew that is stirred by sunlight and the moon's gravity into the great currents and tides that move across the earth, circulating the means of life, bringing warmth to the frozen Arctic and cool, fresh winds to the tropics. We give thanks for the blessed clouds and the rain that brings the gift of life to the land, that eases the thirst of roots, that grows the trees and sustains life even in the dry desert. We give thanks for the springs that bring life-giving water up from the ground, for the small streams and creeks, for the mighty rivers. We praise the beauty of water, the sparkle of the sunlight on a blue lake, the shimmer of moonlight on the ocean's waves, the white spray of the waterfall. We take delight in the sweet singing of the dancing stream and the roar of the river in the flood. We ask help to know within ourselves all the powers of water, to wear down and to build up, to ebb and to flow, to nurture and to destroy, to merge and to separate. We know that water has great powers of healing and cleansing, and we also know that water is vulnerable to contamination and pollution. We ask help in our work as healers, in our efforts to ensure that the waters of the world run clean and run free, that all the earth's children have the water they need to sustain abundance of life. Blessed be the water.
Amen. We're going to close our ritual this evening by inviting any gathered who would like to return to the joined waters and take a little bit of that home with you for your own ritual purposes, or to water a plant that might not be too damaged by salt water. Remember, there is salt water in there. But if anyone here would like to come up and bring their little plastic bottle or any other vessel you brought, we would like to invite you forward to do that so that we don't drip water everywhere. I and Ryan will be the ones dipping into the vessel, but that's just for cleanliness of this beautiful space and stage. So is anyone present interested in coming up and claiming some water back?
guess you're planning for.
Yeah.
You can fill that one up. So.
So in closing, let's just remember, like I said earlier, that below all of our division and below the illusion of separation lies the water that connects us all. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we really hope that you'll stay for a little while to have some food and fellowship. I hear there's some yummy food back in the Bonhoeffer room. Are we done, Julia? Am I done, Julia? Are we done? Are we going to do question and answers? We're done? I like that idea. So we'll just be more casual. If you heard someone speak this evening that you would love to ask a question of or have a conversation with, we will be around for a while, and we can do it with a little bit of snacks in our hands. Thank you for joining us this evening. It was beautiful to have you all here.
Thank you, everyone. There's snacks in the Bonhoeffer room, and we look forward to talking with you.